We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. Anybody here know what classic speech that is? What the source? Any guesses? Henry V, thank you. William Shakespeare. Perhaps Shakespeare is too new for some of you folks. So let's go back to classical antiquity. Can anybody tell me what Pegasus was in classical antiquity? The flying horse, Greek mythology. Very good. Very good. We'll hear more about Pegasus later this afternoon. Well, as you all know, Kansas is celebrating its 150th birthday this year. And what most of you probably know is that last spring in 2010, for the first time in Kansas history, we had to close all of our courts statewide because we did not have the money to keep them open. And for the first time in Kansas history, we had to send our employees home without pay for 4 days. And that's what resulted in the court closures because we did not have enough money to pay them. And for the first time in Kansas history, the Supreme Court was maintaining a hiring freeze for more than 30 to 60 days. As of last spring, we had had a hiring freeze in effect for more than 18 months. In fact, it has been since December 2008 when it was first established. Now, because approximately 98% of the judicial branch budget goes to personnel, salaries, wages, benefits, unfortunately, when our budget is cut or when we don't have enough money, it is our people who suffer. They're the ones who have to get sent home without pay, and as a result, we have to close our courts. Unfortunately, that also comes at the expense of Kansas citizens, because when we have no money and we have to close the courts, the citizens no longer have access to justice. Now, also last spring in 2010, for perhaps the first time in Kansas history, after the courts had closed for several days, a Kansas legislator contacted a Supreme Court justice, me, and said, exactly how much money is it going to take to keep our courts open for this upcoming fiscal year, the one that begins July 1, 2010? And because of the poor state of the economy, I was asked to be realistic and be practical. So I consulted my advisors and I gave the legislature last year a realistic figure. And I'm here to say, to their everlasting credit, they met that figure to the dime. We told them what we needed and they provided it. But that figure required us to maintain 75 to 80 vacancies in our non-judge workforce. In other words, about 5% of our employees. Now, those of you who have an economic background or business background may say, well, so what? That's what you do when economic times are bad and your orders are down. You send your workers home. Well, the problem with that analogy is that our orders are not down because we still, unfortunately, have people in Kansas who are committing sex crimes against children. We still have citizens getting injured or killed. We still have business people whose contracts are being breached, and they are all in need of justice. So we still have to provide the same quantity of service and the same quality of service with 5% less people. So once again, our orders are not down. Now, during that past session a year ago, the legislature had also looked at some other things of interest to the judicial branch. There was something called a legislative post-audit study performed at the behest of some legislators, and they looked at the Kansas judicial branch, provided a report to the legislature in late 2009. And one of the things that that post-audit study recommended was to take our existing 31 judicial districts across the state and reduce it to 13 districts, which they said would save about $6 million, or to reduce it to 7 districts, which they said would save us about $8 million. And of course, with these reductions in the judicial districts, there would be accompanying reductions in our judges and our support personnel. And if not absolute reductions for everybody, relocations. Now, the Supreme Court disputed a lot of the things that were found in that study, but we did agree upon the need, per their suggestion, to have a blue ribbon commission study the operations of the Kansas Judicial Branch. And we also agreed with one of their recommendations, which was to have a weighted caseload study be performed and funded by the legislature. Now, you may have heard that term being used over the last year. What exactly does it mean? Well, we recognize that you cannot just look at the sheer number of cases that are filed with a court and assigned to judges to determine exactly what the load on the judge and staff is. You have to look at the complexity of the cases, and you have to look at the fact that some of our judges have to travel from county to county to county to do their work. The 12th Judicial District north of Salina, there's one district judge. She has 6 counties to cover, and she has to make her circuit at least once a month to handle all that work. And it's not realistic to ask her to read cases while she's driving. Now, we have some judges, for example, who may have 5,000 cases on their docket, and another judge has only 500 cases. And so just looking at sheer numbers, you would say, well, the judge with 5,000 is entitled to 10 times the resources as the other. Well, upon closer examination, you may find out that the judge with 5,000 cases, they're all traffic tickets, and they're all uncontested. The people plead guilty, come into the court, pay their money, and leave. Whereas the judge with only 500 cases might have several first-degree murder trials, might have some class action litigation, might have some complex civil litigation, and those jury trials can go on for 4 to 6 weeks. So what we're trying to do with this weighted caseload study is compare apples to apples. Now, the legislature in that post-audit study also looked at what's called the one judge per county requirement. Some of you may know that since the early 1980s, there has been a statute on the books that requires, and I'll quote it, quote, at least one judge of the district court to reside in and have principal office in each of Kansas's 105